okay, you're saying something that's actually factually inaccurate,
right,
according to the narrative. Now, let's be real clear. I don't necessarily think they know what's going on yet. There's a lot of weird...
Texted you when the Charlie Kirk thing happened because my antennas went up about... They showed the photo of that kid, or the guy that they have, the 22-year-old,
yeah,
whatever. And I was almost going to be like, dude.
This kid had a rifle with a scope. Now, here's where it gets weird. The first images of this rifle with a scope, I swear to God, it looks like he has a composite stock on it. Like, it looks like a modern 30-06 rifle. So
the air in the studio was heavy, humming with that strange silence that shows up right before a truth someone isn't supposed to say. Joe Rogan leaned closer to the mic, eyes narrowed, voice dipped low. It wasn't comedy anymore. It was curiosity laced with danger. "Something's off about this story," he said slowly, and the sentence landed like a spark on gasoline. Everyone in the room went still. Even his co-host stopped fidgeting. Because when Rogan starts doubting, the world stops scrolling. He wasn't talking about pop culture this time. He was talking about the case of Charlie Kirk, the polished tragedy the media had already wrapped in a bow. Rogan leaned back and said, "You ever look at a photo and just feel that it's lying to you?" The line hit like prophecy. People listening could almost hear his mind turning. He began with the rifle. A 22-year-old rebuilding a World War I weapon with no serial number, no trace? Impossible. His voice sharpened, every word cutting through the static. That rifle looked like something built last week. Clean scope, composite stock, no dust, no age. He wasn't saying it was fake. He was saying it didn't make sense. And when Rogan says something doesn't make sense, the internet grabs magnifying glasses. Within minutes, clips from that moment flooded every platform. Hashtags formed, captions screamed, threads piled high with people dissecting every pixel of that photograph. Rogan's suspicion had become everyone's obsession. He went deeper. He mentioned the shadow men, figures who always seemed to appear when the world fell apart. "The same face keeps showing up," he said, voice trembling somewhere between disbelief and awe. "At 9/11, at the Boston bombing, now here." He paused long enough for listeners to feel the chill. And right after, he's arrested for something completely different so he can't talk. His co-host swallowed hard, eyes darting between screens, realizing they'd just stepped into something that wasn't supposed to be discussed. Rogan wasn't ranting. He was investigating live. By sunrise, social media looked like an evidence board. People slowed footage, circled faces, compared timestamps, found patterns that may or may not have existed. Some said Rogan was paranoid. Others called him brave. But one thing was certain, the official narrative was cracking. And just as the noise started to settle, another voice exploded into the chaos. Candace Owens. Owens didn't question. She declared. Her tone wasn't skeptical, it was surgical. "Everything you've been told about the Charlie Kirk case is a lie," she said during a live stream that would end up being replayed more than the evening news. She spoke with the conviction of someone holding classified truth. "They said Tyler Robinson did it. They said it was his gun, but he never even liked guns." Her words dropped like bombs. "So if he didn't know the weapon, who planted it?" That question became the internet's heartbeat. People repeated it in comment sections, podcasts, and hashtags. Then she went further. She talked about engravings on the bullet casing, initials that Tyler claimed weren't his. He said, "That's not mine." And they ignored him, she said, eyes blazing. To her followers, it was the proof they'd been waiting for. To critics, it was gasoline thrown on already spreading flames. But Owens didn't flinch. She mentioned something the press had barely whispered about, an internal audit. According to her, Charlie Kirk had ordered one just days before he died, a deep dive into missing funds inside Turning Point USA. He announces it, then a week later he's gone, she said. "You think that's random?" That line detonated across the digital world. The more she spoke, the more people believed that something powerful had been buried beneath the tragedy. Suddenly, Rogan's doubts and Owens's fury merged into one storm. They didn't collaborate, but their voices created an echo that made millions listen harder. Rogan represented skepticism. Owens embodied outrage. Together, they turned curiosity into conviction. Soon the theories multiplied. Clips from old interviews were resurfaced, timelines rewritten, strangers with webcams turning into investigators overnight. Some said Kirk had discovered corruption among his donors. Others whispered that someone close to him wanted control of the organization. It didn't matter whether any of it was true. The storytelling had already replaced the evidence. Rogan revisited the mysterious older man, calling him the decoy. "He's always there," he said, almost whispering. "Always making noise right before the main story breaks. Then gone, every single time." He tapped his table like a gavel. That's not coincidence. That's choreography. His words echoed online like a sermon. Thousands agreed. Thousands mocked him. But even the mockery gave the idea power. Behind the scenes, whispers began leaking from Turning Point USA itself. Anonymous accounts claimed there were sudden firings, sealed emails, and staff reshuffling. And then, the twist no one expected, Charlie Kirk's wife was announced as the new CEO. To supporters, it looked like legacy. To skeptics, it looked like timing too perfect to be natural. Rogan mentioned it carefully, lowering his tone. Was this what he wanted? He asked. Or was this what someone else wanted? That question hung in the air like static. Then came the memo. Screenshots flooded forums. A document dated September 2nd, digitally signed by Kirk, appointing Justin Streif as COO and referencing something called Project Dog GE. No one could verify it, but that didn't stop people from building entire timelines around it. According to online detectives, Dog GE was an audit program that traced financial irregularities tied to political donors. The theory was irresistible. Kirk had found something dangerous, and his death was no coincidence. Whether real or not, the memo became modern folklore. Meanwhile, Owens was relentless. Her tone turned colder, more prophetic. Charlie Kirk was under pressure. Political, financial, moral, she said. Pressure like that doesn't fade. It breaks you or it kills you. That sentence was clipped, captioned, and blasted across every app. Even her critics couldn't look away. She had turned conspiracy into poetry. Then the spotlight shifted toward Charlie's widow. Her poise became her curse. She was calm at public events, collected during speeches, and in the cruel court of social media, composure looked like guilt. Funeral footage went viral, slowed down and analyzed by strangers with too much time and too little empathy. She didn't cry right, someone wrote. Her grief looked staged. Sympathy had turned to suspicion. Rogan addressed it gently, but didn't clear her name either. Maybe it's nothing, he said. But when you connect these dots, it stops feeling random. His voice dipped lower. Maybe we're not supposed to connect them. That line became a phenomenon. Millions of replays, endless debates. People didn't just hear it. They felt it. By now, the story had mutated. It wasn't about facts anymore. It was about faith. Joe Rogan was the calm skeptic. Candace Owens was the righteous rebel. Every word they said became fuel for a nation addicted to suspicion. Every time someone starts asking the right questions, Rogan said in a later episode, something happens to silence them. He paused, eyes locked on the camera. You can call it coincidence. I call it choreography. That clip was everywhere by nightfall. It didn't matter whether it was truth or theater. The line sounded like truth, and that was enough. The narrative had evolved into a living storm. Facts drowned beneath interpretation. Emotion became evidence. Owens went on another live stream saying, "You challenge the powerful, you disappear." That's not theory. That's history repeating itself. The internet erupted again. By the end of that week, reality and rumor were no longer separate. The Charlie Kirk case wasn't just a story anymore. It was a mirror reflecting how people consumed information in an age where doubt is entertainment. Rogan called it the confusion loop. Owens called it the curtain. Millions just called it chaos. And through the noise, one question refused to die. If Charlie Kirk really did find something worth hiding, who decided his silence was worth more than his truth? The microphones cooled, the hashtags slowed, but the paranoia didn't fade. The world didn't calm down after that podcast. It evolved into something stranger. Weeks passed, yet the tension around Charlie Kirk's death refused to fade. Every time someone tried to close the chapter, a new piece of evidence appeared out of nowhere. It wasn't even about proving anything anymore. It was about keeping the story alive. People didn't want resolution. They wanted continuation. And that's exactly what they got when Candace Owens went live again. Her backdrop was darker, her tone slower, and her words felt like she'd been waiting for this moment. "You think you know what happened?" she said. But the truth didn't die with Charlie. It just went silent. She claimed she'd spoken to people close to the Turning Point inner circle. People who were terrified to go on record. According to her, The audit Charlie commissioned had already uncovered discrepancies. Money funneled through shell donors, fake invoices, and a few names too powerful to mention without legal fire. He found out something, she said quietly. And he was ready to talk. That one line froze the internet. Clips went viral before the stream even ended. Because it wasn't about proof, it was about the possibility. And that's the most addictive thing online. Owens described one of those names. Bill Ammon, a billionaire who allegedly clashed with Charlie weeks before his death. He offered money with strings attached, she said. Charlie refused. With strings attached, she said. Charlie refused. And you don't say no to people like that. Her face didn't move as she said it, but her voice cracked on the word refused. That tremor turned a theory into emotion. Ammon's team denied everything within hours, calling her delusional. But denial only amplified the drama. Within minutes, every blog, every TikTok, every newsfeed was repeating the name. Once the rumor lived in public, it couldn't be killed, only mutated. Meanwhile, Joe Rogan returned to his studio, heavier this time. You could hear the exhaustion in his tone. "You know what scares me?" he said. "We'll never know which part of this is real anymore." He didn't sound like a man chasing clout. He sounded like someone drowning in his own curiosity. He replayed old footage, paused on faces, compared timestamps, tracing inconsistencies like they were fingerprints on truth. "You can't build a rifle that old, that clean, that perfect," he said again. "And the more you zoom in, the more it looks like a prop." Then came the part that made even his producers shift in their seats. Rogan brought up the mysterious old man again, the one he'd called the decoy. "He's there in every frame," Rogan said. "You can't miss him. Always causing a distraction, always stealing the camera at the exact second something happens." He leaned in closer, lowering his voice. It's almost like he's supposed to be there. Like chaos needs a face. That phrase, chaos needs a face, became another viral wave. Artists turned it into artwork, editors used it as background audio, and every true crime channel on YouTube grabbed it as their headline. Behind the scenes, more documents surfaced, none verified, all believable. There were claims of deleted audit emails, missing financial trails, and encrypted communications between Kirk and his legal team. One screenshot read, "We're being watched." It was probably fake, but it didn't matter. Once it hit the internet, it became canon. Fact was irrelevant. Feeling was everything. The more emotional the story got, the more people believed it. Owens added fuel with another live broadcast. "This wasn't about politics," she said. "This was about control." She accused certain donors of using the organization as a laundering front, claiming Charlie's audit would have exposed a network bigger than anyone realized. "He was cleaning house," she said, "and someone didn't like that." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "They didn't just take him. They erased his work." The phrase "erased his work" hit deep. People who had never even followed Turning Point began caring. They wanted to believe they were uncovering corruption. They wanted to feel part of something dangerous. And through that hunger, the truth became almost irrelevant. All that mattered was the chase. Joe Rogan tried to cool things down. In his next episode, he said, "I'm not saying there's a conspiracy. I'm saying coincidences don't keep lining up this perfectly." But it was too late. The wave had grown beyond him. Internet detectives flooded forums with flowcharts and diagrams, connecting donors, politicians, journalists, and even unrelated companies. One viral post claimed to have found the missing dog GE files, though every line of text was blacked out. It didn't matter. People filled in the blanks with imagination, and then the spotlight turned cruel again. Charlie Kirk's widow was back in the public eye, giving a speech about continuing her husband's vision. But instead of compassion, she was met with whispers. "She moved on too fast," people said. "She's too calm." Clips of her interviews were slowed down, her pauses dissected like evidence. The internet forgot she was a grieving woman and made her a character in a digital crime story. One commentator called it emotional theater. Another called it grief with choreography. Rogan mentioned her again, gently. "It's strange," he said. "She looks composed, almost rehearsed. Maybe that's just how she copes. Or maybe it's not." The speculation was unstoppable. Even the funeral became part of the narrative. Someone zoomed in on her eyes mid-cry, claiming her tears fell on cue. Another user compared her eulogy gestures to old campaign videos. Sympathy died the moment virality was born. What should have been mourning turned into measurement. of tears, of tone, of guilt. Owens, meanwhile, wasn't backing down. She said there were surveillance files that had mysteriously vanished right after Kirk's death. "The audit's gone, the servers are wiped, the file's missing," she said. "That's not coincidence. That's cleanup." The audience went wild. Hashtags like "Jar Who Silenced Charlie" started trending. Journalists tried to fact-check, but their corrections drowned in the noise. Truth simply couldn't compete with drama. The deeper it went, the more blurred it became. Podcasts, reaction channels, and digital tabloids turned the story into serialized entertainment. Every frame, every quote became a cliffhanger. Rogan was still cautious, always saying, "I'm not accusing anyone," but every pause between his words became its own insinuation. He'd become the reluctant voice of skepticism in a world that preferred certainty, even if that certainty was built on sand. Weeks later, Owens released one final statement that split the internet in two. She said she'd received a message from someone who claimed to be part of the audit team. The message supposedly read, "Charlie found something that could destroy careers. We tried to warn him." It could have been fabricated, it probably was, but it sounded real enough to burn. She ended her video with a line that echoed across millions of screens. "He died trying to tell the truth." That's all anyone needed to hear. Suddenly, the tragedy wasn't about a single man. It was about a system. About every suppressed voice people believed existed behind every locked door. The story became symbolic, a rally cry for distrust itself. And then, the inevitable happened. Anonymous accounts released what they called the missing audit, a half-dozen PDFs filled with random numbers, redacted names, and blurred signatures. They went viral instantly. Every influencer had an opinion. Every skeptic had a doubt. And every viewer had a favorite theory. One claimed it was all political theater. Another said it was a message from inside. The chaos became its own ecosystem, feeding off emotion like oxygen. Joe Rogan sat in front of his mic again, quieter than ever. His usual confidence was gone. "You know what's crazy?" he said. "This whole story, it stopped being about what happened. It's about what people want to believe happened." He exhaled, long and tired. "The more we look for truth, the more it hides." His co-host said nothing. The silence stretched, heavy, awkward, final. Then Rogan muttered the line that would define the conversation for weeks. "Maybe the real conspiracy is that nobody believes anything anymore." That clip became an anthem. People quoted it under unrelated news, used it as captions on protest videos, stitched it with footage of other scandals. It wasn't just about Charlie Kirk anymore. It was about the death of trust itself. Owens responded days later with her own spin. "If every answer brings two new questions," she said, "maybe the truth doesn't want to be found." Her words echoed through digital space like a sermon in an empty church. The chaos didn't die. It evolved. The case became a reflection of something bigger, a generation that no longer trusts proof unless it confirms their pain. Every update, real or fake, became fuel. Every silence, a confession. The tragedy that started as one man's death had turned into a cultural mirror, showing everyone what happens when emotion replaces evidence. Months passed, and the world moved on to new headlines, but the wound stayed open. The videos, the podcasts, the leaks, they all lived forever online, untouched, uncorrected. People still commented under old clips as if time had frozen. Some said Charlie Kirk was a hero who discovered corruption and paid the price. Others said the story was just a digital hallucination. But nobody could fully let go because uncertainty had become addictive, and in the end, that was the cruelest twist. Not that someone died or that lies spread, but that truth itself had turned into entertainment. It wasn't about facts anymore. It was about the performance of belief. And in that performance, everyone played a role. Joe the skeptic, Candace the crusader, the audience the jury. The story didn't close with a verdict. It dissolved into noise. When the microphones finally cooled, when the comment sections emptied, the only thing left was that haunting question that never really got answered. If Charlie Kirk truly tried to expose something, did he die for the truth or for the story built around it? For the truth or for the story built around it?